I'm Mike Andrzejczyk with Virginia Cooperative Extension, and today we're going to show you some garden tips. All right, today we're going to look at azalea pruning, and what we're going to look for is the branches that are sticking up a little bit too much. And you could do this pruning any time of the year. The best time of the year to do this is actually when they're dormant. You can see flowers on the plants here, and that's when typically most people want to do this. But if you do it earlier in January, February, or March before they start to grow, you saved all of that energy so that they can seal those wounds and grow new growth and produce a nicer bush for you. Okay? If you wait till later, you run the risk of cutting off the flowers for next year and then doing some damage to the plant because it's trying to grow and you're taking away that energy. So when we're cutting, there are two major cuts that we can do. We can do what's called a topping cut or a heading cut, and what that is going to do is make the plant bushier. It's going to cause it to get denser and fuller. So if we're making a topping cut, what we want to do is cut above a leaf or a branch. Okay, by doing that, we're not leaving a big stub that's going to die back. And by not leaving that big stub, we're not going to let disease or insects have a big food source for them to come in and attack our plant. And by removing the tip too, we're removing hormones that prevent those buds lower down the branch from growing. Okay, so if we look at this shoot now, we've removed the tip that has all those hormones, and now above each leaf there's a bud, and those are all going to grow now because those hormones are not preventing them from sprouting, and you'll get a much bushier plant from that point on. The next cut we would like to do is to do a thinning cut, and that's typically what most people want to do. And again, if we're pruning our azaleas, we can do this when they're dormant and not affect our flower production. Right now there are buds on all of these branches, and those are going to bloom when they're appropriate. But this plant has gotten too big for the space, or it's got these long growths here and there, and we're going to remove those by making thinning cuts. So we're actually cutting a branch up against another branch, or where it joins to another branch. If you look at my hand, if this is a branch and this is a bigger branch, what we would be doing is cutting right where the thumb gets wider. So we're trying to make the smallest cut, but not cut into basically the bigger trunk of the tree. So we're going to cut right there, and then it will seal off better. Okay. So if we go on this plant, if we're looking on this branch that's sticking up, if we follow this branch all the way down, we can cut it right down here. In this case, it's above a branch, but we're thinning it out, and now you see a more even pattern of leaves, and you don't even miss the branch. And all of these buds are going to bloom. And then if you're cutting it in the wintertime, this branch, you could put it in water and force it to bloom in the house too. So you get double benefit. You get your plants looking good, they're saving that energy for the spring when they want to grow, and you're still getting a beautiful display of flowers, both outside and in the house. So we just can keep going around this plant and looking for those weird branches that are sticking up. Maybe this one's a little too tall, and we can go in, and again, we're going to look for where it joins to the branch and try and find the smallest place where it's just widening out from the bigger branch, and we can make the cut there, and then we're done. And it again blends in. We don't even notice. If you came here tomorrow, nobody would know that I've pruned this plant. And that's the ideal way of pruning a plant. It's just like getting your hair cut, right? You want it to look nice and neat, but you don't want it to look like somebody's chopped everything up on your head. Okay, so we can keep going around and looking at different things. This one's sticking out towards me a little bit much, and we could cut it here, or we could probably go a little bit further back into the plant and cut it off to again get that shape that we're looking for. So if I'm looking at a plant, I want to look at, do I want it a rounder shape or an even shape versus a box or a perfect circle? We want it to look more natural. We'll look for these branches that are sticking out and remove those so that it gets more even. And then we just keep working ourselves around and reducing those branches here and there as we go. And once you remove a branch, you can't put it back on. So you want to start small, and you might just take this first branch off and say, oh, that's still not enough. And then you can go back in and again, cut it off closer to the branch. And we could stop at any point where we feel like it's meeting our goals. Now we see this big open space in here, and maybe we should have cut this off earlier, but if we wanted to, we could cut this all the way back down here, and it would probably regrow in a few years and fill in that space so that, again, we're bringing the whole plant down. And so, for the most part, I think I'm done with this plant for today, but if I really wanted to, or if the window was higher, I could cut these layers off even further down, and it wouldn't affect the bloom of the plant, and you would probably still not notice that I've done pruning to this plant.